Good evening, everyone. Hi. And I'm here to take you through the journey of how did we ship the first hospitality industry experience on visionOS. I'm Jonathan Béreyziat. I'm the founder of be-dev, a small software house that is working in between Poland, we're actually based in Warsaw, and Switzerland. So I'm passionate about coding. I have a computer science degree, and also, as you can see, I have a really nice dog. Sorry, I turned to the screen. So what are we building today? Well, we got the opportunity last year to work with Accor Live Limitless, the new rebranding of Accor Hotel. You may know it from the Novotel, actually. It's super big in Warsaw. So we actually got a couple of weeks to work with this client, discuss about what we will build, and define the main features that we had. First, we had about 3 weeks to talk with the client, define everything, and in the end, we came up with those 3 key features that they absolutely wanted in their app. They wanted to let people visit rooms. Great. This will take basically advantage of the new immersive experience of the Vision Pro. They wanted also to bring something really similar to their online platform, and this is more about booking rooms. So really similar to what you can find on booking.com, a lot of entry data, a lot of credit card management, can be quite tricky to implement on visionOS, as we will see just after. And finally, we had to put together the loyalty program. So the main thing that they wanted to put together and to bring to this app, it was to show their new VIP loyalty program. And it can seem a little bit boring because a loyalty program is basically a loyalty card. Like, it's really a boring card for VIP. Okay, great. And they wanted absolutely to do this as an app that you will use VR with. So you have a credit card, you need to do VR. Okay, that's weird. Come back to this. So let's just take a look at the timeline a little bit. So we actually started at be-dev to code in visionOS in November 2023. It was a bit after the announcement that was more or less welcomed, as you may have seen during WWDC when they said the awesome price of the Vision Pro. It was great news for all the developers. I'm pretty sure everybody in this room has one. So basically, we got started in November, and in November we took a quick look at what Apple was giving developers to work with. And this is the simulator. And I think it's a little bit against popular belief, as we discussed just before, but in my opinion, the simulator is pretty well done. It gives like the overall good experience. So actually, if after this conference you're interested about giving a try to develop your own app on visionOS or just try something, make sure you have 10 gigabytes of storage on your laptop and a pretty good M1 chip, or at least M1. Because otherwise your Intel chip is going to melt. That's another topic. But basically, we get started back then. In February, we get the device release. And just after that, we started discussing with all.com about an eventual app on the Vision Store. This is on 25th of May. And we kind of get started at this moment to implement the app. And the really interesting talk, that was a really memorable meeting, it was about when you ship an app, one of the key elements you want to know is when does your client want the app? The answer was 26th of June. So we have 4 weeks to build a full experience. According to what they asked, it was basically really similar to their current platform that they put years to develop, but we have 4 weeks. And they want also to include some VR new features. So of course we need to compromise on this, and we need to discuss about that. But we don't have time, so let's dive into the implementation right away. So let's go into week 1 of what we had to do. And the first thing is that during week 1, despite the 3 weeks previous that we discussed with the client, you have to actually get the info from the client, like exactly what they want, what will be their expectations. And I will start with just a couple of advices, if I may, about talking with clients. So basically, initially when you're coming as a freelancer or as an agency, or even as a solo developer, you will basically come to the client and thinking that you have like all the technical elements and that you have to teach them something. Reverse the position. Take the client as a teacher. They will know the best about their domain, and what you will bring them is the guidance to actually show them what is wrong. They will have really fixed ideas on exactly what they want, and most of the time, if not all the time, it's a bit off the industry. So for example, the main element that we got with all.com is that they wanted basically booking.com, or their online platform, to bring to visionOS. By definition, it's a bad idea, because visionOS is a software, or like a platform, that allows you to manipulate elements in 3D. Well, excuse me, but manipulating credit cards in 3D, it's not so fun. So basically, the idea is that we had to explain them that yes, it would be a good idea to do an app for Vision Pro, but if you use the features of Vision Pro, it's like when you develop for iPad, you use the feature of the iPad. When you develop for Mac, you get the power of the Mac, and you don't develop a mobile app for macOS. So another element is that sometimes you will get a client that doesn't give you a lot of information. They will expect that you give them the info. So just a little thing that you can do is beforehand prepare a couple of questions, and you can actually ask them during the talk. Sounds pretty obvious, but it needs to be open-ended questions that will bring them to speed, like basically make them talk. During the first meetings, you're not going to talk a lot. And usually when working with big corporation, one key element is that you will work with a lot of stakeholders that do not have time. You will manage to get 1 hour of the guy responsible for security. You will get 1 hour from the guy who is responsible for the marketing, and not more. So you have 1 hour to get the most information from them, and when you're on tight schedule, it's really important to get all this info right away. At the end of the meeting, don't let them go like this, because otherwise you're basically in for a really good email loop afterward. Reuse your own words, rephrase everything, and come with the solution right away. If you don't feel like building a solution on the fly because you just don't feel like it's a good idea to bullshit too much at the end of the talk, state it. Say that you will come back with them and that they will have to answer, because otherwise you're again in for a waiting loop that will basically delay your development. And don't worry, client is always really eager to put this on you. So just make sure that you have the information about that at the end. What tools to use? Well, nothing really new here. I'm sorry, I have to put Google Meet and Slack here, despite the little joke about Discords before. But this is what we use at be-dev. Then use whatever you want. But basically, I really advise you to record your meetings and to use a tool that will transcribe it at the same time. We use TLDV. It's a really great tool to get actually the information in a script, and afterwards you can get the transcription, get AI summaries, and two other tools that are really interesting to take a look at is Loom and Outline. So why Loom? When you are during the first meetings, usually you are trying to build an experience, and this experience is going to go really fast building in your head. But afterwards, what is in your head, sorry, it's only for you. So the thing that you need to do is to transcribe it somehow. Use Framer, Figma, whatever you want to build the experience to show the clients, but don't send your designs. Send a recording of your designs, because it's really, really often that a client will not understand how to use Figma, or will not really understand like your purpose or where you put the prototype links, will click completely across the prototype, build a great experience, you tested it in Figma, it's great, but the client didn't understand because he was on his own. Don't let him on his own. Either do a meeting or send a Loom with the recording about that. Then after that, we are using Outline. It's an alternative to Notion. It's open source. It's pretty nice to self-host. If you don't know something called Cloud Run, it's an awesome also tool to have your own self-hosted server. And you can, instead of sending like documents, PDFs or emails, just use Outline or Google Docs where you can actually edit afterwards. It will just avoid this stressful situation where you send something and you have to change it just after and send like, hey, sorry, it's version 2. So, all right. And the final element is that I added Slack here, not for you to use Slack, use whatever you want, but use one single channel of communication. It's really important because, again, when you don't have time, you don't want to look for the data. You actually want to know where it is. So choose emails, choose Slack, choose Discord, but just stick to it. Just like don't spread around because otherwise you're doomed after that. All right, so let's say that now we have all the information from the client. We know, at least I for the moment, know what we're gonna build. Sorry, I'm gonna come back to that just after. But basically, in week 2, we're gonna have some really interesting stuff coming up. So as I said, we are building for visionOS. And what if we build an app that is basically like booking.com? It's not really interesting. So we need to do something unique about that. And what is unique about that is environments. You may have seen this all over the internet when the hype was a little bit higher, but environment, 360 video, 180 video, the immersion and the quality that you get from the Vision Pro, and also from some high-end like the Meta Quest, you will actually be able to make users visit real places. And this is the gears and the weapons, more like, that you need to use to record those elements. So far away from the little 360 camera that you may take in your pocket, on the left side you have the, left? Okay, there. Here you have the Meta 3, and on the left side you have the Instax 360 Titan. So those are really massive cameras. They need an operating crew, so there is like a dedicated team that went on site in the hotel that we will use to present this concept. So the hotel that got chosen is the Raffle in London. There will be more images just after that. And there was a filming crew that went there, got some really good pictures and really high quality shots from the iconic places in the hotel with those cameras. And this is one picture of the final result. So I don't know if you can see it really well on the screen right now, but it looks somehow unrealistic. It looks practically like a 3D model. And the reason for that, and it's on purpose that I'm not showing a video yet, is that it's really complicated to transcribe on a 2D screen right now what you may have as a 3D experience and a stereoscopic experience in a VR headset. Especially the column in the middle, it looks practically fake because this is a picture that is recorded in stereoscopy and then brought back to 2D. So it's not just like a really nice shot on a DSLR camera, but it's actually a part of an immersive video. All right, so here my friend ChatGPT generated me this really cool table, so you may recognize the UI. But the point is that I just wanted to show you a little bit the codecs that are used for that. So when you're shooting a 360 video, actually non-stereoscopic 360 video, you will use a codec of encryption that's called HEVC. This is pretty known. It's actually really used in general in the industry. And the main advantage of that is that you can transcribe a really, really high fidelity videos. The problem with that is that it doesn't cover stereoscopy. So it doesn't allow you to have a video that will have one shot for the right eye and one shot for the left eye. And this is absolutely needed when you are in a VR headset. Otherwise, you're basically on Google Street Maps. It's like a street video that you can visit. It's great, looks also cool, but it's not like the same immersive effect. You don't feel like you're in the room. So we need to use MV-HEVC for multi-view high-efficiency video coding. Thank you. So it's just important to know that those are codecs. It's the encryption codec that is used for the video, but it's not the format of the video. At the end of the day, you don't have a .mv-HEVC, you have a .mp4 that is used in the code. And to do this, I'll just remind you a little bit about the timeline, but we are 2 months after the release of the actual device. And the only company in the world back then that shipped 360 videos on the Vision Pro, it's Apple. That's usually, it's like, okay, cool, nice challenge, but it usually means that you're kind of on your own I think Shumon here will back me up that there was really not a lot of documentation back then. So not only there is no code, but there is nothing to actually encode in this format right now. Okay, so we got the chance to work with another studio that is specialized in more, let's say, immersive experiences. And they had some contact at Apple directly with their WDR team, so the Worldwide Development Relationship team. So we could send an email to them, and they were really nice to provide you with like some documentation, actually. So they updated some documentation on the Apple page for this project. And then they told us that, no, sorry, the codec is under NDA. So we have 3 weeks to figure this out. Unfortunately, the same studio we were working with was working with Gucci just before, and they actually developed the MV-HEVC encoder in-house, and back then it was open source. So we got, I'm coming back for the back then. So it was open source, and we could use it, of course, with their agreement for commercial use. And the thing is that now we have a file that is encoded. Well, that's awesome. For you today, just in case you at some point want to encode yourself a video, because it actually can be useful because some consumer camera now can do it. I think you can even do it with some of the latest iPhones directly for immersive views. You may want to use the apps that got built on this legacy open source package that is not anymore. MV Converter and MV Player app. Those two apps allow you one to convert to MV-HEVC, and the other one allows you to view those files, which I'm going to use just later to show you. Just to come back on the process, the big difference in big difference between MV-HEVC and HEVC is that you have really high quality files, but they are showed in like side by side. So you have like on one side a fully flat 360 video for the left eye, and on the other side a fully flat video for the right eye. And based on that, well, you need to encode it so that the player that you will use inside of the AVP will know like which one to play on what screen, because there are 2 screens in the AVP. And basically that's like handling those 2 cases as shown in the slide. So the side by side, we were using this, but some cameras are also recording in up, down. Cool, so now we have encoded videos. That's great. That's a little bit of a problem that we hit at this point, is that we ship the videos, we put them in the app, we got the player, everything was working. And the first feedback that we got is that people lose equilibrium and they feel sick. Like some of them even went to the next step of sick. So basically, we have a great experience that makes people feel like they're in a roller coaster. Yeah, that was not really the point. So the thing that we had to do now is to come back and during the same week, come back to the studio that recorded, really alarmed about like the quality of the file is wrong, we have something off, and we have no idea what it is it's coming from. Fortunately, again, they were quite used to this kind of scenario, and the reason is because of the frame rate. So we were using 25 frame rate for static filming, and it's really confusing because you basically put a camera in one place, nothing moves, and you take a 360 video of it. So you may think that you want to have a picture of it, but if you put a picture in stereoscopy, it doesn't work. You need to absolutely have a video, because when you are like standing in one place like this and you're looking around, it's not a picture, it's a video. It's actually your eyes taking 60 around frame rate per second. So we changed this back to 60 frame rate, and we got lucky enough that they didn't have to come back in the hotel to film, because when they filmed initially, the raw file were actually at 60 frame rate. So we got like super lucky at this point, because to be honest, if it was at this moment we had to reshoot everything, that's a whole camera crew, a whole hotel stopped. It's just back, like impossible to go back to this stage. All right, so now that I talked for like 10 minutes about videos, I think it's the right moment to show a little bit how it looks like. Yeah, I'm doing my slides in Figma. All right. So I've shown you a picture just before of the lobby. So this should look more or less familiar now. And this is MV Player, the app that allows us to see. So as you can see, it's a video. People are actually moving. And this is the kind of quality that you actually get. In reality, it's even better because right now it's a 2D representation. So you cannot really feel the stereoscopy. So right now it's more like a 360 video. But in the Vision Pro, you have a real feeling that you are there. You want to touch the elements, and it's really impressive. The other video that I would like to show you quickly is the one that I think it's my favorite, personally, is the one from the swimming pool. So in the swimming pool, everything looks really good. The light is like awesome, and it looks, again, really pretty much like a 360 picture. And the only place you can see that it's actually a video is if you take a look at the water. And one thing that they didn't really know about that when filming is that they place the user just aside of the swimming pool. So you're like, literally, if I'm on stage, it's like this. And there is like two type of people: the people who will, like me, get scared of falling in the water, and the people who will be like, oh, cool, I really want to jump or to touch the water. So you're like this, and you're like, wow, it's awesome, and you're like, oh, shit, okay. So that was a pretty nice experience. There's also the only artifact is the bottom of the camera. So here you can see how the camera was placed. Good. Cool. So now we have the assets. We know what the people want. We already started back then the implementation, and we are diving into a little bit of project adaptation. So week 3, I called it like time to get realistic, because in the project, it's usually the moment that you have to come back to your client and to say like, okay, you have to explain them really clearly and state facts, like don't put any affect in it. It's not about like you being under pressure or people not answering. It's just about things are happening. Explain them what's happening during the project, and explain them that not everything will be possible to implement. In the case of all.com, the main problem that we faced is that we had to collaborate with multiple teams. The main team that we collaborated with, and this was really I highlighted because it's pretty rare in big companies, it was the innovation team of Accor. They are in charge of taking a look at how the hotel industry will look like in like 5-10 years. And they are like having really a lot of people just to test things. And that's really good because it's allowing for projects like that. And they are super responsive. The leader of this team was like answering us. He was like pushing everybody in the team, sending emails, and like at midnight. It was a great experience during those 4 weeks. But then we also had to work with the security team. Well, so the security team, it's people who are not working on the innovation project, and nothing against the security team, but they don't have time for us. Like we're just like a side project that comes in. Okay, so we're like just arriving at the end of the week and like, hey, can we have an API key? That's great, cool. No. Because we need to do an audit of your app if you want an API key to put it in production. So, which was really complicated actually to explain to the innovation team, because they were just like, well, just give them, please. No, okay. So I had 1, 2, 3 meetings with this like security team. In the end of the day, they sent us all the documentation. We practically built the whole OAuth flow inside of the app. And the final element, it was this API key. This like final little stone to finish everything, and they don't want it to give it to us. So we had to work this around, and we explained them, hey, we cannot have it because basically you need to do a security audit of the app. We cannot do this in 2 weeks, and actually you cannot do this in 2 weeks. So let's just switch the feature. And instead of booking and letting people authenticate through the app, we passed through an AWS service that allows to call the hotel, and it was solving 2 problems in one. The first one being the UX issue with Vision Pro is that when you are logging in, you need to enter a password. Passwords are usually not working really well with audio recognition, so you need to type it, and typing on Vision Pro is not really good experience. So we bypass this, we call the AWS service. The AWS service put us in contact directly with the concierge because it's a VIP app, and basically we are done. Like, we kind of ditched the auth code, we removed it from the final build, we replaced it by this like booking service that allows to use open APIs from all.com, and we can check the availability of the room, so that's good, we still have this feature, and we can call the hotel. So it's really important, and this is in any project, at some point to be realistic with your client. They will take it way better if you state facts, explain them what is going to stay and what is going to be removed. And the final thing is that just don't let them on the note of like, okay, well, the developer wants to remove stuff. Well, nice, thank you. No, just explain them that it's not because we remove a feature that the experience is going to be less great. It's actually quite the opposite, because it will allow to focus on some of the key features. And as soon as you don't remove a core feature of the app, you're kind of good to go. During this third week, it's also important to gather feedback. And in this case, like usually you form a little team, a beta testing team, and you bring things together. We don't really have time for that, so we developed just our internal tool. Sorry, sponsored segment. So basically, it's a tool that is called Spybug. It's actually got released today. If you want to take a look, I really invite you to scan the QR. It's a free tool that allows to gather feedback from the users. And it's SwiftUI oriented, developer friendly. Basically, it's like one line of code, as I'll show it just in the next stage. But from the project standpoint, what it helped us is we had 4 AVPs, so 4 people who were testing it in the AVP. And I didn't mention it, but we didn't have, as developer, access to the device. This was really complicated because a lot of things were not working in the simulator, 360 videos. So we need like real feedback, live feedback from the app, from people who are not using, don't want to use like tech tools or stuff like this. They just want to be in the app and be like, hi, .complain. Cool. So we need a way to give them this experience, and we added a little button. Back then it was just an internal tool. From now we just kind of use it in all our projects since then. And again, it's free, just go check it out. From a code standpoint, because I'm talking a lot about like marketing and like discussing with clients, so you may be missing a little bit of code right now. We have a 3 approach, the lazy approach, which is basically use the Spybug button in 3 lines and customize your stuff, because it works exactly like the button in SwiftUI. You can use all the modifiers. Under the hood, it's literally just a button that is wrapping some actions. And we have the moderate lazy approach, which allows you to just update the text. Maybe we'll add a little modifier to have the same text entry as on the button. And finally, if you just need to push this like 5 minutes before production and you need feedback from your users, use the extra lazy approach with like 1 line of code. Of course, there is just one little hidden thing back in the back, is that you need to add an API key in the plist. But this one, you will get it without problem. There is no security team. Sorry. All right. Let's dive also a little bit more in what we encountered as technical problems during the implementation. We have 2 main issues that we faced in our development on the Vision Pro. So actually 3, the first one being the video problem. The second one is the material blur. Material blur. So you may have experienced, if you developed anything for iOS in SwiftUI, a little bit experienced this super cool blur called thin material, ultra thin material, and all those stuff. It works really well. It doesn't work really well with some specific modifiers, especially the opacity modifiers. When you are applying to a view an opacity modifier, usually you expect it to move the opacity. Pretty straightforward. But the thing with the material layers is that they don't like this, and they are also losing translucency. This means that this effect that you see, this is actually a screenshot from an app from Apple, Tips, and you see this gradient just on the left. It's like a gradient of material blur. It looks really cool, it looks super native. There was also a version of iOS in the left side panel that was shipping this, and suddenly they removed it, even though it looked really good. And it's really complicated to do. By the way, if anyone has like a native solution for this, please come to me because we struggled a lot with it. The idea here is that we wanted the same effect as in tips. And this is our final result. We managed to reproduce this blur pretty much, but if you pay attention at the clock level, you will see that it's not translucent anymore, it's transparent. Because as I said, the material layer is actually impacting not only opacity, but also translucency. So to achieve this effect, this is the code for the material blur. So for the material blur, the approach that we did is basically to use a geometry reader that is taking track of the size of the screen, and we kept it to 1/3 of the screen on the left as being fully displayed. The other key element here is that we're using a simple mask to mask the ultra-thin material. Those lines of code, they are not taking much time and much reflection, let's say, to come up with. The only problem that you may go into, and I think pretty much everybody who codes in this room had the experience, is that you are over-focusing on little detail, and it takes you 2, 3, 4 days to try to iron out this like little difference that you're seeing in a native app. Unfortunately, today I'm not going to be able to show you the solution because we didn't come up with it yet, but this is the best experience you can get with a material blur, at least for now. The other element is that, in case you're wondering, it doesn't help to go back to UIKit because it's the same, and actually it's even worse because on UIKit you don't have those effects out of the box, so you'd have to build them yourself. The next problem is the window management. So I will just need a little bit of visualization effort from everyone, and you will have to imagine an app that is like floating around, like floating screens around. So the first thing that you will do is that you open your app. That's the first step, and it's floating in front of you. Now this app, like on iPadOS, it has the capabilities to open different windows. The big difference with iPadOS is that in visionOS, you're not space constrained, so you can put a window here, one on the piano, one here, one on the screen, and then you kind of Iron Man. That's awesome feature. But the problem with that is that you usually in a UX flow have a main window that is opening secondary windows. So let's say that you open this first window, you open then a secondary window, let's say for the booking, and then by mistake, or just because you wanted to close it this way, you close the main window, and remains the secondary window. The problem with this is, well, that you're losing your main window. So you're like, first reflex is to close this secondary window. Now you're back to the home. Cool. Let's reopen the app. The expected behavior would be to reopen the main screen of the app. This is not the default behavior on visionOS. The default behavior is to open the last screen that was closed, which is really counterintuitive, and not only counterintuitive, but also it brings another problem, is that if your app from the secondary screen has no way to come back to the main screen, you need to close the app. Okay, until visionOS 2.0, you had no idea and no possibility to close an app. So you had to uninstall it and reinstall it just to open the main window. And it's not really a good experience, in my opinion, for the users, but I'll let this to Apple team actually open the ticket about that. When Apple is doing something, you are thinking like, okay, I'm wrong. Okay, please, someone contradict me here, but I found no way that this is actually intuitive. So the idea here is that you want that your secondary screen doesn't handle opening the app. And that's why we're using this that is coming from iPadOS. There's actually no documentation about that on visionOS documentation at all, of how to manage opening of apps or opening of secondary windows. But if you refer to iPadOS documentation, which is really similar, so in case you develop for visionOS, refer to iPadOS documentation, it's pretty much the same. Like really surprisingly, but it works really the same. The idea here in those 2 lines of handle external events is that you're gonna say that your secondary screen is not only not preferring, but not allowing any external event. So the event array is empty. you're specifying it, and this little structure here is actually a working app. Any time you will close a secondary screen first, what is going to happen is that the next event is going to be the event open app, and since they don't manage any event, basically your main screen is going to get open. So just don't forget those lines that should, in my opinion, be by default, or there should be like something called like main screen or something like that. But basically, don't forget those lines if you're developing for visionOS. Otherwise, you risk to have some users completely stuck and be like, well, 1 star. I could not open the app again. Cool. So we ironed out everything in the development, and we are arriving to week 4. Week 4 is really the most important week here, because we are at the shipping week. And the first element, and that's something I would not say that like a lot of people or agencies, freelancers forget, but more like forget about communicating to the client, is that you need to freeze your development. When you are when you are at 1 week of shipping an app, you cannot add new features. You have to say, and usually it's better to say it even before, like at week 1, just say to your client, like, we're gonna stop developing after 3 weeks. Because the last week, it's not about just like chilling and like going to drink a cocktail, but it's more about you absolutely want to not bring a single new feature to the app. If you are starting to bring new features, it's the perfect recipe for a disaster during demo day. The idea here is that you communicate this clearly to the client and you take only feedback and corrections on core features, not even this like little stuff or pixel on the side. No, this should have been done before during the feedback session. If there is still some stuff that are passing on the minor features, forget about those, focus on the core features. Then we had also to work a little bit with the marketing team that this time we actually got a really responsive team, so it was really nice to work with them. And we managed to give them all the assets, give the screenshots. It's a whole topic to do screenshots on visionOS because you cannot, it looks cheap to do screenshots in the simulator. And it looks awful to do screenshots in real life. So basically the best scenario, it's to do a screenshot in the simulator where you have the best quality of your screen, and then have either a graphic or just really good Photoshop skills to take the screen, put it on a real 3D model or something like that, and then it looks kind of better. But again, if you just need to use the simulator, it looks a little bit cheap, but for the main one, sorry. So it looks a little bit cheap for the main one, but you can always use different backgrounds actually in the simulator, and then you have like more fancy stuff. So we finalize the build, we finalize the test flight, we ship it, and then we actually have 48 hours before the demo when we ship the first element to validate. If you're used to validate apps, 48 hours is a bit short. So the idea is that, again, we send a really nice email to a WDR team, and they took, because of the size of all.com, they took the case in priority, and we got validated in less than 12 hours, like literally from night to morning in Cupertino. So that was a really, really quick validation, and we passed on first try, so we can breathe, and that's good. Now I talked about an app for a long time, but I still didn't see too many screens about it, so I just want to run the simulator and to show you a little bit more about that. All right, so this is the first screen of the app. I'll just zoom a little bit or move a little bit forward in the simulator, and you can discover the OVO. We retook a couple of interfaces. So basically, this is the hotel that was shot, the raffle in London. You have a bunch of screens here that you can discover the different suites, go through rooms, discover a little bit more about the rooms themselves. The only thing, as I explained to you, that I will not be able to show here is the videos inside of the simulator, because unlike MV Player, the simulator of Apple doesn't handle immersive video display. So we have a little black display when you're trying to play a video. But you've seen the videos, they are like the one that I was showing before. So the idea is like to navigate through here, and then you can check the availability of the room on a dedicated screen and visit the room. The other really interesting thing that I sort of passed a little bit in my presentation is how to make loyalty program interesting in VR. Well, the first element here is that we get inspired by the cover flow animation from the first version of iOS. And this actual animation, again, you cannot really see it here, but it's actually a 3D element on the screen. And we went even a little bit further because we wanted to let users play around with their Fidelity card and get more information, but in an AR way. So what we implemented is that you can take your Platinum card, place it in a screen, of course, right now, sorry, I'm a bit too far. So place it here. It's going to appear in your 3D space. Then you can manipulate your card like you prefer, and you can also flip it to take a quicker look at the content. And of course, you can take also your Diamond card and play around with your super cool Fidelity experience at all.com. It's actually pretty fun to try it in live as well, and it's less gimmicky than in the simulator. But they were really happy with the final result and like how to make cards interesting. We also got lucky enough for them to accept, because it's an innovation product, to have the whole team listed in the credits. So we had the team at Accor with the people from the innovation team, as well as the people from the Incal studio that were working in collaboration with us. And we didn't got the name of the company listed, unfortunately, but we are all here, Pavel, Shimon, and me, as well as the filming crew of the art company. So this is for the demo. And I also wanted to show you a little bit more about Spybug quickly. So we got on the home screen a little button here that if you take a really closer look, it's a bug in the SF symbol, a ladybug precisely. And when you are opening the experience here, you have a little screen popping up in front of you. You can report a bug, request an improvement, ask a question. Virtually, it's more or less the same. It's just about like classifying the elements in the background and allowing to have like a really good interactive elements in visionOS. Then, of course, you can add your favorite puppy to the bug, add a little description here. And send it to Spybug. And now it's sent, and you have it like on a control panel. We are working also to bring a little bit more implementation to existing tools. So basically that it sends not only to the admin panel, but also to Linear, Trello, or whatever you're using for your bug integration. And this is what we brought as well to the project here. All right, let's just come back quickly to the slides. Cool. Sorry, I'm spoiling a little bit myself, but yes, so that's really cool because we made it. So on the day, as I said, 48 hours before, we sent for validation. 24 hours before the deadline, we got validated. And on the day of the demo, they actually went shooting in Paris. So it's not just like in those like cheesy movie where you see like the Eiffel Tower everywhere. It's actually filmed with a guy that had to look pretty weird, but it has to be funny, in front of the Eiffel Tower. They filmed the experience. They filmed like all the interaction with the card. They show this on Figma config during the day of the event. And if you want to take a look at the whole talk and what they're talking about, you can scan this QR code. It's actually the only opportunity to get the video because it's non-referenced on YouTube. So if you want to scan it, it's now. Yeah, so we built an app in 4 weeks after a couple of weeks of discussing for a grand total of 35 seconds on stage during the day of the event. But it was a really, really interesting adventure to go through and to work with like super interesting people. Afterwards, we actually got a couple of downloads as well from people who are not from our team. And because this app is in public, so in case anyone has a Vision Pro, you can test it just afterwards. But we were really happy with those feedbacks, especially the first one that we really didn't see coming afterward. And we got featured on the Vision Pro store for about a week just after the release. A little team shout out. So as I said, there was 2 studios working on this, us, be-dev, based in Warsaw, with Szymon, Pavel, and me, who were working really hard to push this on the development part. And on the client communication and the creation of the product, we had in-call with Johan, who was working at Apple and Meta just before starting his own venture, and Nicola on the development side as well, who was working on the MV player. Thank you very much for listening. I hope it was interesting, and thank you. Yeah. So we have time for 2 questions. So in case you can grab the...
Okay, so I'm going to be throwing this to you, all right? It's really soft, really easy to catch.
It's a mic? Okay, cool. Thanks for the talk. Can you tell us some numbers? How successful was the app? How many unique users did you get?
So on the first weeks, we got around 100 downloads for the app in internal. And after that, we didn't really got updates about like how well it did. We suspect that there was like about like around 1,000 downloads in the end, but we would have to check. Like again, there was not really any internal communication of Accor aside of Figma, so it's kind of numbers to be expected for a fully private app without updates. Actually, it's a really interesting topic. When I was finishing, I was like, that's really sad I don't have the numbers, so maybe I will just update about that on our LinkedIn many soon.
So basically, have you tried already on a real device?
Yes, yes. So as I said during the talk, back then we didn't have any device. It was also not possible to buy it, and still is not in Poland or in Switzerland, which is the reason we don't own one. We can actually rent one in Warsaw, I think I checked. But we got the opportunity during a workshop at the end of last year to test the device, test our app, test our implementation, and that's why I could tell you that, like, how is the feeling about the pool. It was it was really weird experience because it's like stuff that you're touching and you have like a lot of time to imagine how it will look like. And so I had a really huge apprehension of being disappointed about the experience. I was expecting the UI to be not as good, or in general the Vision Pro to be a bit less than what people say that tested it. And in my opinion, the device is really delivering on, let's say, the expectations. And especially when you have really high quality assets, this is where it thrives. Like, this is where you can like get the most of it. So like, as the UI is one part, it's really well managed. The assets is like 60% of the job. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Jonathan.